The mahogany-paneled walls of Mitchell & Sons real estate seemed to close in around me as I placed my company keycard on my father's desk. 25 years of grooming for succession, ended by a food truck and a dream. "This is absolutely ridiculous, Sophia," my father growled, his face turning that dangerous shade of red I remembered from childhood disappointments. "You want to throw away $100 million real estate empire to sell tacos from a truck." I stood my ground, though my hands trembled slightly. "They're not just tacos, Dad, my fusion recipes." He slammed his hand on the desk, making his top real estate mogul award rattle. "Your grandmother's recipes aren't going to pay for your lifestyle. This company is your birthright, your future." Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of downtown Boston, dotted with buildings that bore the Mitchell & Sons logo. 3 generations of my family had built this empire. I was supposed to be the 4th. "I've already signed the lease for my first truck," I said quietly, "and I'm keeping my personal savings, but I don't want any company shares or family money. I need to do this on my own." My father's voice turned cold. "If you walk out that door, don't expect any help when this crazy food scheme fails. No trust fund, no safety net." "I know." I turned to leave, then paused. "Just remember, Dad, Grandma started this company selling one house at a time when everyone said a woman couldn't succeed in real estate. Sometimes the crazy schemes are the ones that work." My mother was waiting in the lobby, tears in her eyes. "Darling, please reconsider. Your brother Thomas would love to have you run the residential division while he handles commercial." Of course he would. Thomas, with his Harvard MBA and perfect corporate image, wanted nothing more than to relegate me to the smaller, feminine side of the business. "I'm sure it'll do great with both divisions," I said, hugging her goodbye. "But I need to follow my own path." As I walked out of Mitchell & Sons for the last time, I thought about the journey that had led to this moment. Growing up, I'd split my time between luxury real estate open houses and my grandmother's kitchen. While my father taught me about property values and market trends, Grandma Elena taught me about the power of food to bring people together. She'd emigrated from Mexico with nothing but her recipes and determination, married my grandfather, and helped him turn one small real estate office into an empire. But in private moments, she'd tell me how much she missed the joy of cooking for others. "Money builds houses, my amor," she'd say as we made her secret mole sauce. "But food builds homes." I'd gone to business school as expected, earned my MBA, and taken my place at Mitchell & Sons. But every evening, I'd experiment in my kitchen, combining Grandma Elena's traditional recipes with influences from my travels and culinary classes. My food blog gained a following. Pop-up dinner events sold out instantly. Then came the night that changed everything. I was hosting a private dinner for some of Boston's top food critics under my online pseudonym, The Fusion Foodie, when Thomas burst in. "Sophia, you're going to be late for the board meeting. What are you doing playing restaurant?" The critics looked up in surprise. One of them, Janet Chen from Boston Food Monthly, set down her fork. "You're Sophia Mitchell?" "From Mitchell & Sons Real Estate." I nodded, heart sinking. My cover was blown. But instead of mockery, Janet's eyes lit up. "This coconut mole sauce with lemongrass short ribs is revolutionary. Why aren't you doing this professionally?" That question haunted me for weeks. Why wasn't I? Because of family expectations? Fear of failure? Or just inertia? The answer came in the form of a for lease sign on an old food truck. Within a month, I had a business plan, designs for my Fusion Fiesta branding, and a growing sense of excitement I hadn't felt in years of real estate deals. Now, watching the Mitchell & Sons building recede in my rearview mirror, I felt a strange mixture of terror and liberation. My newly purchased food truck sat in a storage lot across town, waiting for renovations. My savings would cover startup costs and 6 months of living expenses. After that, I was on my own. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Dad's furious. Come back and apologize before you ruin everything." I turned the phone off and drove to the storage lot. The food truck was a 1975 model that needed serious work, but it had good bones, kind of like the rundown properties Dad had taught me to see potential in. "Well, old girl," I patted its rusty side, ready to start an empire of our own. The next month was a crash course in everything that business school hadn't taught me. I learned to fix plumbing, install kitchen equipment, and navigate the maze of food service regulations. My hands, once manicured for real estate showings, became callous from manual labor. Every evening, I experimented with recipes in my drastically downsized apartment kitchen. Grandma Elena's traditional Mexican dishes merged with Asian, Mediterranean, and American influences. The coconut mole sauce that had impressed Janet Chen became my signature, along with Korean bulgogi tacos and Thai basil empanadas. The Mitchell family grapevine kept me informed of the fallout for my departure. Dad had written me out of his will. Thomas was strutting around the office like he orchestrated my exit. Mom was telling her friends I was finding myself. None of them believed I would succeed. But then again, none of them had tasted my food. Finally, after weeks of preparation, health inspections, and test runs, Fusion Fiesta was ready for its debut. I'd chosen a spot near the financial district where hungry office workers might be willing to try something different for lunch. The night before my first service, I visited Grandma Elena. At 92, she was still sharp as ever, living in the penthouse apartment she bought with her first major real estate commission. "They think I'm crazy," I told her as we sat on her balcony. "Maybe I am." She took my hand, examining the burns and calluses with approval. "Your grandfather thought I was crazy too when I used my cooking money to put a down payment on that first office building. Sometimes crazy is just another word for brave." She pressed a small notebook into my hands, her personal recipe book, the one even my father hadn't been allowed to touch. "Now these belong to someone who will use them with love." Dawn found me parked in my designated spot, prepping ingredients with shaking hands. Would anyone even show up? Had I just committed career suicide? At 11:30, I opened the window and waited. The lunch crowd began trickling past, most ignoring the new food truck. Then a familiar face appeared. Janet Chen, the food critic. I heard through the grapevine that the Fusion foodie was going mobile. She smiled. "One of everything, please." As she ate, a small crowd gathered, watching her reaction. Her eyes closed in pleasure at the first bite of my coconut mole short rib taco. "Absolutely magnificent," she declared loudly. "Worth leaving real estate for." By 12:30, I had a line around the block. By 2 o'clock, I was sold out completely. That evening, exhausted but exhilarated, I checked my phone for the first time all day. 20 missed calls from family members, all probably reading Janet Chen's live-tweeted review of my food truck debut. But I wasn't interested in their opinions anymore. I was too busy planning tomorrow's menu, calculating ingredient orders, and dreaming about a second truck. Sometimes leaving everything behind is just the first step toward building something better. I might not be selling million-dollar properties anymore. But as I counted my first day's earnings, I realized something. I'd never felt more like a true Mitchell entrepreneur. Janet Chen's review turned out to be just the beginning. Within a week, every major food blog in Boston had featured Fusion Fiesta. The lines got longer, the wait times increased, and soon I had regulars who would spend their entire lunch break just to get my coconut mole tacos. But success brought its own challenges. My brother Thomas started sending employees to spy on my operation, taking photos and noting down prices. Then suddenly, 3 new Fusion food trucks appeared in nearby spots, all owned by shell companies I traced back to Mitchell and Sons. "Really, Thomas?" I confronted him over the phone. "Food trucks? What happened to them being beneath the Mitchell name?" "Just protecting our market share," he replied smoothly. "Nothing personal, sis. Business is business." But their trucks failed within months. It turned out that authentic Fusion cuisine required more than just copying recipes and branding. It needed heart, passion, and the years I'd spent perfecting each dish. A year into my new venture, I had 3 trucks of my own, each with carefully trained staff and strict quality control. My original truck, which I still operated personally, had become a sort of test kitchen where I developed new recipes. That's when the real estate market started to shift. Commercial properties that Mitchell and Sons had heavily invested in began losing tenants as companies moved toward remote work. The residential division, which Thomas had always treated as secondary, was plagued by high interest rates and nervous buyers. I heard about their troubles through Grandma Elena, who still held a significant ownership stake in the company. "Your father won't admit it," she told me over Sunday dinner, "but they're over-leveraged. Thomas took too many risks, borrowed too much." I nodded, thinking about the business lessons I'd learned from running my food trucks. Bigger isn't always better. "No, my amor," Sometimes the strongest businesses grow like good recipes, slowly, with care and attention. By then, Fusion Fiesta had evolved beyond just trucks. I'd opened a small test kitchen that offered cooking classes. Our catering division was booked months in advance for corporate events and weddings. I'd even started bottling my signature sauces, which now sold in specialty food stores across New England. Then came the opportunity I'd never expected. A prime corner property in downtown Boston, once home to a prestigious restaurant, went up for sale. The location was perfect, the bones of the building were solid, and thanks to the market downturn, the price was reasonable. I scheduled a viewing, only to find my father and Thomas already there, arguing with the realtor. Sophia, my father's face darkened. This isn't a place for food trucks. Mitchell and Sons is buying this building. Actually, the realtor interjected, Ms. Mitchell's offer has already been accepted. Her financing is solid, and her business plan for the space is exactly what the sellers were hoping for. The look on their faces was priceless. I used my real estate training and connections to secure an SBA loan, leveraging Fusion Fiesta's proven track record and strong financials. The food truck they dismissed had given me the credentials to buy $1 million property. The renovation took 6 months. I kept all 4 food trucks running while overseeing every detail of the restaurant's design. The grand dining room would showcase elevated versions of our street food menu. The basement would become a teaching kitchen for cooking classes. The roof would host a garden for fresh ingredients. Opening night was fully booked weeks in advance. Every food critic in Boston attended, along with local celebrities and business leaders. But the guests I was most nervous about were my parents and Thomas, who had surprisingly accepted my invitation. They sat at the best table, watching as plate after plate emerged from the kitchen. My coconut mole short ribs, now plated with traditional Mexican rice and Asian picked vegetables. Korean bulgogi tacos elevated with homemade kimchi and Grandma Alina's special salsa. Thai basil empanadas served with cucumber mint relish. This is extraordinary, my mother finally said, emotion in her voice. You've created something remarkable, Sophia. Thomas pushed his plate away, but I could see he cleaned it completely. The location certainly helps. Though commercial real estate is struggling, I finished. I know, I've been watching the market. My father set down his fork, studying me with new eyes. You have, haven't you? Just like we taught you. That's when I laid my proposal on the table. A detailed analysis of Mitchell and Sons' portfolio, along with a plan to diversify into hospitality properties, using my connections in the restaurant industry to identify promising opportunities and tenants. You want to buy into the company? Thomas asked incredulously. Now? No, I smiled. I want to merge with it. Fusion Hospitality Group has grown beyond just restaurants. We're positioned to expand into boutique hotels, specialty food markets, and culinary education centers. But we need a strong real estate partner. My father picked up the proposal, his experienced eyes scanning the numbers. These projections are solid, but why should we trust? Because while you were trying to copy my food trucks, I was building a profitable hospitality empire. Because I took every lesson you taught me about real estate and applied it to a new market. And because right now, you need my success more than I need your name. The negotiations took weeks. Thomas fought it initially, but the board, seeing Fusion Hospitality's growth potential, sided with me. In the end, we structured a merger that preserved the best of both companies while charting a new direction. Mitchell and Sons Real Estate became Mitchell Fusion Group, with divisions in traditional real estate, hospitality properties, and culinary enterprises. I took charge of the hospitality division while helping modernize the residential and commercial operations. Thomas eventually found his footing running our commercial division, though he still won't admit that my food truck idea was brilliant. Dad's semi-retired but serves as a consultant, finally accepting that innovation doesn't always mean following the old path. The original Fusion Fiesta food truck sits in the lobby of our corporate headquarters, restored to its former glory. Next to it, a wall displays 2 photographs. One of Grandma Elena in front of the first Mitchell and Sons office, and one of me serving tacos from that truck on my first day. Last week, a young associate asked to meet with me. She was hesitant, nervous about sharing her unconventional idea for a new division of the company. Some people might think it's crazy, she said, clutching her business plan. I smiled, remembering another young woman holding a food truck lease. Sometimes crazy is just another word for brave. Tell me more. Looking back, leaving Mitchell and Sons wasn't about rejecting my family's legacy. It was about finding my own way to build on it. Real estate taught me about property values, but food taught me about creating value. Both lessons proved essential to building something greater than either could have been alone. The Mitchell name still stands for success in Boston, but now it represents something more. The courage to take risks, the wisdom to trust your instincts, and the understanding that empires can be built on dreams as easily as deeds. Every Sunday, I still cook dinner for Grandma Elena using her recipes. She loves to remind me about the day I left real estate for a food truck. I knew then, she says, watching me make her mole sauce, that you would build something special. Because you weren't afraid to be a little bit crazy. She's right. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. Sometimes throwing away your future is the only way to find it. And sometimes the best revenge isn't buying out the family business. It's making it better than it ever was before.